Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond Sidekicks and Stereotypes. This is a conversation between three inspiring middle grade authors and me. So first, before we begin, we want to give a quick shout out to the Asian Author Alliance, which is a group founded by the amazing author Kat Cho, to celebrate Asian kidlit and the diversity of stories that originate from the Asian continent. And they've done this amazing thing with Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, where they're pulling together all these different panels to represent authors and artists coming together for the month of May. So thank you for everything you're doing. It's been an amazing lineup, and I'm glad that we get to be a part of it. So how's everybody doing?
Doing good. Doing great.
So I guess we can start with introductions of this fantastic lineup. So I'll be your moderator today. I get to control the situation. So first up, we have Hannah Khan, who is an author of picture books and middle grade fiction. Her middle grade novel, Ominous Voice, launched Simon & Schuster's Salam Reads imprint and was named a Best Book of 2017 by the Washington Post, NPR, Kirkus Reviews, and others. She wrote Zaid Salim, Chasing the Dream series, and recently More to the Story, which is back there on that wall. A novel inspired by her all-time favorite book, Little Women. Hannah's award-winning picture books include Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, Under My Hijab, Crescent Moons and Pointed Minarets, Night of the Moon, It's Ramadan, Curious George, and the forthcoming Like the Moon Loves the Sky. That is Hannah Khan. Welcome, Hannah Khan.
Hey, thank you. That was awesome. It's lovely to be here. And I'll just share a little bit about my newest middle grade novel that you mentioned, which is inspired by Little Women. I actually have my original copy of Little Women here to show you because it's so awesome looking with the tape worn up. But this book I used to read obsessively as a child, and I always thought it would lend itself well to a Pakistani retelling. But when I actually sat down to write the book, I realized I didn't want to retell someone else's story. So what I ended up doing was taking pieces from my favorite book and weaving it into a new story featuring 4 Pakistani American sisters growing up in modern times in Atlanta, Georgia. And the story centers around Jamila, the girl in the checkered shirt with the book on her stomach. She is a writer. She's actually a journalist who writes for her middle school newspaper, and she's very passionate about news and hard news, real important stories, but she feels trapped by her editor who wants her to write fluff pieces, so she's constantly battling with him. She's also dealing with some big changes in her family, a special friend who moves to their neighborhood from overseas, a father who moves away out of the country actually for work, and a sister who falls seriously ill. And so she's trying to juggle all these things while she's pursuing her dream to enter into this national journalism contest with an amazing article. And she kind of fumbles along the way and makes some mistakes and has to figure out what really matters to her and how to make people care about the things that she cares about most. So I hope you'll enjoy it.
And my daughters and I love this book, Hannah, so
thank
much.
you. Thank you.
An important question. Did you strategically time it to have it come out around the same time as it was back in the theaters?
I did not. That was pure luck.
Like next level genius.
I know it would have been if I had, but that was pure luck. And I don't know, I saw the movie and I actually really loved it. And I wasn't expecting to because I never liked any of the other adaptations, but I thought it was well done. So no, I was lucky.
It was pretty good. It won't be as good as the More to the Story.
Seriously, my kids want a More to the Story movie.
That would be amazing. I hope so. I will dream. Thank you.
Okay, well, next up we have Ellen O, who is a former adjunct college professor and lawyer with an insatiable curiosity for ancient Asian history. She loves martial arts films, K-pop, K-dramas, and cooking shows, and is a rabid fan of The Last Airbender, which I just started watching, and the Legend of Korra series. Ellen is a co-founder of We Need Diverse Books, a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing diversity in children's literature. Originally from New York City, Ellen lives in Bethesda, Maryland, with her husband and 3 children, and has yet to satisfy her quest for a decent bagel, which is that much harder since we're under quarantine. But welcome, Ellen O.
Min, can you do me a favor and just tape that to your face? No, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you so much, Min, for that marvelous introduction. Dragon Egg Princess is my most recent middle grade novel. It's a fantasy. It's my ode to Studio Ghibli. I'm a huge fan of the Miyazaki movies. So if you like Spirited Away, you probably will get kind of a sense of why I wanted to write something similar. And that's what Dragon Egg Princess is. It's about a boy who has no magic in a world that is full of magic, and he has to help a lost princess save the world. And of course, whenever I say save the world, it's like dun dun dun. But you know, when we're in the middle of a global pandemic, saving the world sounds like a really important thing that we all should do now, right? Am I right? So
Oh, yes.
Yes.
we are no longer in the fantasy world. It has crossed over to reality.
Yeah, I love this book so much. This one also needs to be a movie. Everyone's books need to be movies on this panel.
And merchandise of all type with that cover, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
That cover
yeah, I love
kills
that
me.
cover. Did I tell you when I was in Korea, I got this stamp? Oh, you guys saw my stamp
Yes,
with the
it's beautiful.
cover. And I love it. And I'm just so sad I haven't been able to go to events and use this gold stamp in my books. So I hope one day soon to be back out stamping books again, safely with my mask on, social distancing.
Yeah.
I just realized that this bio that I pulled for you doesn't mention any of your books. That Ellen O is so prolific, her bios don't even have room to that she's written. That's how amazing she is.
No, Eleanor was kind of dumb and did not include her books in the bio is actually what you should have said.
Ellen O is about to go and update her website later today. Okay, and next up we have Christina Soon, who is a storyteller, engineer, and STEM educator. She is the author of the fantasy middle grade series, The Changelings, and the early chapter book series, Diary of an Ice Princess. She has about 732 books coming out this year, including the middle grade fantasy, A Wish in the Dark, and All 13, a nonfiction account of the Thai cave rescue. Welcome, Christina.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I keep looking behind me because my kids were outside in the backyard playing in the little pool, and then they just they wrote a big sign that said the mosquito guys are here spraying, and they hold it in the window, so I had to let them inside. So if they pop in, that's okay. We're all used to that now. Okay, so yes, A Wish in the Dark. I don't have 732 books coming out this year, man. I only have 7 books coming out, but this one is very, very special. This is the book of my heart. So this is the story of Fong, who is a boy who is born in a prison, and he escapes from that prison and runs away and hides in a Buddhist temple. And the daughter of the prison warden goes to the temple, and she discovers him years later and becomes obsessed with tracking him down. So it's a chase story. She chases him to this magical city, and they find this city on the brink of revolution, and he has to kind of like help the people go through their revolution and make the world a better place. And so like Henna, my story is a retelling. So this is a retelling of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, which I have a copy somewhere, like my very near and dear copy of the book. So it was also one of my favorite stories. And this A Wish in the Dark is set in a magical Thailand, which is where my dad is from. So we are retelling sisters.
Yes.
And something I didn't realize while I was reading it is that it's a retelling of Les Miserables, and that's Les Miserables, right?
Yeah.
And A Wish in the Dark.
Yes, I totally planned that. Right? Yeah. I don't know how to say it right. My French is terrible, so my Thai. My Thai is also terrible. So.
mine too, but I'm also not Thai. My Vietnamese is terrible.
Mine is terrible. So
good.
My Korean is terrible.
That's why we're all friends. Okay, Min, who's the last person you're introducing?
That's it. Right?
No.
I have to introduce myself too. Okay. I am your moderator today. My name is Minh Lai, and I am primarily a picture book author, though the lovely world of middle grade has allowed me to tiptoe into their world. So the book I have, the middle grade book I have is Green Lantern Legacy, which is published by DC Comics. There it is. And it's about a Vietnamese American boy who lives with his parents and his grandmother. And unfortunately, one day his grandmother passes away, and he ends up with her jade ring, which he then discovers is actually a Green Lantern power ring, and that his grandmother had been a Green Lantern his entire life. So then the book follows him as he learns about his grandmother's secret superhero past, while also learning how to become a Green Lantern himself. So that is Green Lantern Legacy. And thank you for letting me join you all today.
And it's awesome.
So we don't have a ton of time, so I thought we should just jump right into the meat of this conversation. How does that sound to you all?
Good.
Okay. So the theme that we picked today was Beyond Sidekicks and Stereotypes, and I think that makes a lot of sense because as Asian American authors, what we grew up with as readers was a very limited amount of stories, if anything. The representation was definitely lacking, and the representation we did see was often somewhat harmful, if anything. So it couldn't help but shape us, all of us as writers. So the question I have for you all is, when you were growing up, did you see yourself represented in books or on screen? And if so, how did those representations affect you? I'll throw it to my top, Christina first.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna jump in because I hate awkward silence. I did not. I think probably the very first time I remember seeing Asian characters on screen was in the Goonies, and Data in the Goonies. And I remember being like so excited there was an Asian character in this movie that was so awesome, and then like so disappointed that he was like completely a stereotype, and like a really negative stereotype too. Have somebody peeking in, but I that was my first time. That was the first time that I remember.
I think movies really did us dirty.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. You guys answer.
No, but seriously, I think movies really did us dirty, right? I mean, like, is it Pretty in Pink? No, 16 Candles, right? With Long Dung
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I always remember. I never actually watched the movie, but I saw those horrible stereotypes of from Breakfast at Tiffany's. That that really horrible one. Yeah. And I think that like you look at the movies and you think, my God, this is what Americans think of us, like what non-Asian people think of us, and it was really kind of disheartening and sad to see that. So for me, I think the first time really having positive representation wasn't until the Joy-Luck Club, which was kind of a seminal moment in my life, because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I feel seen for the first time. This is my experience. This literally is my experience, even though they're Chinese and I'm Korean. It's seeing an immigrant family. It's seeing my mom and my dad and my family in the pages of a book, and realizing that was okay, that that our lives are no less an American experience than anyone else's. So I think that was really an important point for me. But I was big by the time I saw that. I mean, when I was little, the only thing I can remember was the Five Chinese Brothers, and that was, you're little and you see that book and there's something wrong with it, and you don't have the words to figure out what's wrong until you go to recess and the kids chase you around making chinky eyes, and you know how it is. It's not a comfortable situation. So I think that historically we have not had good representation, and I'm just so proud of the fact that we're in such a better place now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was very similar for me. I didn't see myself in literature at all growing up as a Pakistani American or as a Muslim. I don't remember seeing any characters like me. In the film and TV world, I guess I saw the South Asian taxi driver, sort of bit character, and maybe the 7-Eleven owner. Then we had The Simpsons, of course, and the famous convenience store owner. But I think the first time I saw myself in terms of representation, which wasn't particularly positive, was with being a Pakistani, was Babu on Seinfeld. I don't know if you remember this episode, but he was a restaurant owner, and he's this, very caricatured Pakistani uncle, and he shakes his finger at Jerry and says, "You're a very, very bad man." And we used to laugh at it because it was the first time we saw somebody who was being identified specifically as Pakistani. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, it was all these little no-named characters, and occasionally in terms of being a Muslim, like the terrorist or the hijacker or somebody like that. So pretty negative all around, unfortunately.
Right. I think one of the interesting things about it is that when the representation that you have available to you is so limited, that a lot of times kids will grasp onto even those negative stereotypes or negative portrayals. So I remember watching Goonies, seeing that kid, I was like, oh, that kid kind of looks like me. And even though it's very it's not a good portrayal, it's like it was still something that I tried to identify with because it was something, right? And like, what does it mean to graft yourself onto a negative identity or a negative portrayal, and how does that kind of like mess with your psyche? So I remember, Ellen, for me, it was 5 Chinese Brothers too. And a story that I've shared with you before is, I remember I was in art class as a kid, and we were doing these self-portraits, and the teacher was handing out mirrors to everyone to draw themselves. And somehow they ran out of mirrors, and there was a Cambodian kid and me in the class, and we both just like somehow just looked at each other and we're like, we got this. And and what we did was we just drew each other instead of like using a mirror, and like we're like, that's close enough. And so I had this like self-portrait of myself from a kid that was, I'm like, no, that's actually the other kid in the class.
Oh my God.
But that's kind of like the insidious nature of these books. It's like, oh, 5 Chinese Brothers says everyone looks the same. I was like, we're close enough. It's like, and how does that kind of like worm its way into your self-identity is kind of staggering in a lot of ways. So I think were you?
Oh no, I was just gonna say same thing. It did not even. I remember that book as a child, and it didn't even. I didn't realize that it was anything bad. Like, it was presented to me like it was a great folktale,
Right.
So I didn't think of it. But of course, it's like affecting you all the time. I didn't really, the first time I saw a book where with an Asian on the cover was Lisa Yi's Millicent Min, Girl Genius. So I was an adult, but that's a kid's book. I saw it, and I think it's like a Barnes and Noble or something. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, that is an Asian girl on the cover of a book all by herself. Like, not like the Babysitter's Club, like Claudia on the Babysitter's Club, where she's just like one of the babysitters or something. And then an Asian American wrote the book. And it was one of those things where you don't even know what you wanted or what you were lacking until you see it,
Right.
Like, I don't think it really hit me until I saw what I was lacking.
Right. You don't know what you've been missing your entire life, right? It's like, I have to say that the moment I thought we made it was when Pixar came out with Up, because I think Russell is like my absolute favorite character ever. Because here's this little Asian boy who's not very good at math. He's not very studious, but he's so, determined and sweet and kind and just so relatable. And like, him being Asian was not part of the plot,
Right.
He was just an Asian kid and just an Asian American kid. And I love that.
Yeah, and I love what you said, Christina, about not knowing what you were missing until you see it, because I felt like that's exactly what it was for me. And I started searching when I was in college for representation, and I read South Asian authors, like mostly Indian women from the subcontinent or maybe from England. And, it was nice to see nuggets of my experience, like foods that I recognized or clothing or language here and there scattered, but it still wasn't my story as an American child of Pakistani immigrants. And it wasn't until I read The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, where it was like a Bangladeshi family, so different than mine, but the description of the mom character was it hit me so hard. I was like, this is my mother. And it was so moving in a way I wasn't prepared for. Like, I still adore that book because it gave me that experience. And then the whole idea of growing up in that, split culture environment and what it was like for a male character, but someone who was, I felt like me for the first time in my life as a 30-year-old woman, I think.
Yeah, for me, it was after college. I read, I had my copy of American Born Chinese. And like the first time I read that, I was like, that exact same experience of like, I didn't realize this is the book I had been waiting for my whole life, and I didn't realize it, right? You like, it's a game changer. And it's amazing because then you can kind of retroactively look back on everything you read or consumed and be like, oh, wait a minute, this was not what I thought it was. It's like, I go look back at shows we watched as kids. I was like, I didn't realize everyone was white. There's like,
Yeah.
you're like, it's just like you didn't cross your mind, and now you look back and what does that mean because of the default of characters being white? It just sets the stage for just like your way of engaging with the world. So like Ellen said, I'm so glad that now kids have a much broader palette to play around with than what we did. It's great when we go out to talk to kids and it's like they're not going to have to wait till they're after college or in their 30s to see themselves in a book. And what's that going to do for them moving forward?
And for others to see us too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that somehow, you know, all of us came to the point where we felt like we deserve to have our voices be heard. We deserve to tell our story. But, you know, I think there's got to be just as many people who absorb the message that people like us weren't important, our voices were not important, and the story is not worth telling. So, yeah, I hope that the kids today, that no one is gonna get that message. I think that's the impact of what our books are and representation is that they'll feel like I deserve to be on the front of the book. That means I deserve to have my story told. I think that's so important.
Yeah, we have to stop being othered, right? Because I think being othered is exactly what causes a lot of the problems we're seeing now against Asian Americans during the pandemic. Whenever you have like issues with another culture, another race has to be blamed because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the scapegoats. They're looking for people to have for the bad guys in life, right? And I think one of the problems with being a person of color in this country is that we so many times get relegated to being the bad guy, that almost becomes the default. And that's why it's so important to have these voices come out in so many different ways, to be represented in movies and TV and books, because we can't be that default and we can't continue to be othered. So,
yeah, and like with when you have these like harmful narratives and these harmful depictions out there, it's like it's important to balance that out with like actual like realistic depictions and like depictions that like fully humanize people, because you see so many of those dehumanizing narratives that end up leading to these horrific events or leading to the mistreatment of a whole group of people just for walking down the street. It's like it's a tough time in the pandemic to think as an author, like what is your role? But the hope is that some of this does play an important part. I guess that's the hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question I have for you all is kind of related to the depiction and like cultural representation. So do you include culturally specific details in your writing? And if so, can you give some examples of that for people listening? Let's start with.
I'm not going first this time.
Yeah, Henna.
Okay, I do a lot of it actually, and both language, cultural traditions, clothing, foods. Like I sprinkle it in throughout all of my middle grade fiction, and for me, it's just part of the story because it's part of my characters' lives, just like it's part of my own life growing up, my kids' lives now, and I try not to define them. I made a conscious choice in Ominous Voice, my first middle grade book, not to include a glossary of terms. And I still get people who sometimes ask like, oh, I wish you had included a glossary, or I actually had some kids make a glossary for me that was illustrated, which was amazing. But, the idea was that we gave enough context clues that it's a food, or it's a greeting, or it's an article of clothing, and even if you don't know exactly what it means or what's in it, there's Google or someone you can ask. And so that for me was important because I wanted kids who were from the same background to be able to just see their story in a way that wasn't teachy or sort of like, we eat these foods that are dumplings filled with mincemeat, and it's just, something that this kid is eating as part of their experience. And so I definitely do include them and feel like it makes the story richer and feel more authentic for me.
I got so hungry reading more to the story.
I know, I probably overdo it in the food department, but
I love
such
it.
a big part.
Christina, your turn.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you're talking about like defining the foods, and think about when we were growing up and reading books, like had we ever eaten crumpets or, wait, how many stories did we read about like tea time? I don't know what
so
that
true.
is.
I know. I always thought crumpets would be these amazingly delicious things, and I was like, oh, it's bread. It's like not even as good as an English muffin. Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. It's like a bread that looks like a sponge. I had it for once, and I was like, really? Crumpet actually sounds scrumptious.
Yeah,
exactly. I thought crumpet would be like the ultimate thing. Yeah.
But somehow we could read those whole books, and we didn't have to know, or like all the medieval, like reading fantasy, set in the British Isles, like all the, I don't know, things they had to wear in their machinery and weaponry and stuff. I don't know what that is, but we just love the book anyway. Yeah, I know I do. A Wish in the Dark has there's a lot of food. I actually just realized somebody made a remark, and I was like, oh yeah, I just realized that in my story, whenever the main character is going through like a really hard time, like he has a real low point and he needs a moment of safety and to like feel comforted, there's food. It's like a scene where someone is sharing food with him. Because in Thailand, it's such an important, it's just every interaction, when you share your food with people, that makes such a connection with them. You're instantly like a part of their family. You're in their inner circle. So I didn't even realize that I was doing that. And there's a lot of the foods in there that some Thai readers have commented on and been like, I know what you did there. I know what you were talking about with that one dish or that one drink or something like that, which is really fun.
Yeah, I have a lot of food in Dragon Egg Princess. I have a lot of food in all my books, actually. I think food is the one thing that all people can relate to. And because it's such a great way to share our culture, that it is maybe one of our finest ambassadors, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I always include it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Minh?
Yeah, one thing, a small detail that we managed to sneak into Green Lantern Legacy is on this page with the grandmother. Let me see if I can. There's a tiny green bottle next to her bedside table, and it's this eucalyptus oil called Yosun, which my grandmother always had in her room. Whenever everyone was feeling sick, she'd open it up and like kind of like rub it on you, and like I can like smell it, just like looking at the picture, and like can like feel it. It's a very like strong. You can like feel it in like your nose, and that's like a tiny detail that like maybe 2 or 3 people will pick up on, but for those 2 or 3 people, it's gonna be like I can like it adds this like layer of depth that I think is really rewarding. And for me, I'm also like, oh, it's a pretty green liquid. It's perfect for Green Lantern.
Yeah.
but yeah,
Nice.
those kind of details that like not everyone's gonna pick up on, still make the story richer because those details make a story authentic and true, right? And I think that comes through in all of your books. So thank you for what you do.
I think we have to include Tiger Balm in our books, guys. I feel like Tiger Balm, every Asian knows what Tiger Balm smells like. No? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. This is like a version of Tiger Balm. It's like there's Tiger Balm on one bedside table and this on the other.
I know what you're talking about, man. I know it's something really similar in Thailand, and I can smell it too.
Yeah.
And it's always like grandmas and aunties and
and that's what I love. Yeah.
Tiger Balm would make an amazing name for a supervillain.
Yeah, totally.
Boy.
What I love is that including these specifics like can be so relatable to people from different cultures, right? Who have something very, very similar or recognize something that maybe you meant, like you were thinking from your perspective is, unique to your community, but then someone else is like, we do that exact same thing. Or like my auntie also hands me, leftover food in an empty yogurt container, just like you wrote about in your story. And I love that. I love that so many people can relate, even if it's not exactly the same.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have found this, but I just feel like kids today, like when I'm going out and doing school visits or not, I've been doing a lot of virtual visits. They're so open and they're so curious. And, when I was growing up, there was a lot of like, oh, what, your food smells weird when you brought stuff to the cafeteria. And I'm sure that still happens. And I know that still goes on. And, but I just feel like there's so much more open to being inclusive than when we were growing up. I don't know if that's been your experience when you've talked to them.
I feel like my mom would pack me a couple of times. It did not happen a lot, but a couple of times when we were really poor. So a few times when she'd actually make me a nice lunchbox, it would be like for a special occasion, right? And I remember being so embarrassed to open that at school, even though my mom had, it was like such a special thing to get that. I would not be able to eat it at school. I'd have to bring it back home and eat it at home. And so that, like, when I think about that, it actually makes me really sad. Meanwhile, my kids, when they were in school, they're like, Mom, can you pack me kimbap, which is like, you know, like kind of like the Korean sushi looking thing, right? Or they'll just ask for noodles and they have no problem. And they say they go to the school and people will be like, can I try some? Can I have some? You know, so I felt like, wow, what a different experience. And a lot of that, I think, is exposure, right? They've been exposed more to these different food cultures. And I think that's, again, why it's so important to have these cultural defining moments.
I think having like shows like To All the Boys I Loved Before and like that, they're like pop culture phenomenons, make these different cultures instead of like the outsider. Suddenly it's almost like a commodity. It's like, this is something I want to be a part of, something I want to learn more about. And kind of like there's, like you said, we're not on the sidelines anymore. And once you're kind of like in that central positioning, then people want to know more about it and want to like have that natural curiosity and like authentic engagement is the hope.
Oh yeah, I was actually so mad when that movie came out because I could not buy my Korean yogurt at the store. It was all out.
Oh, that's so
like,
funny.
oh, everybody had come to the stores and bought them all out. So.
The downsides.
Exactly.
And now it's toilet paper. Oh.
So that actually goes nicely to another question we were talking about. Is we're talking about like putting specific cultural details, but when you're writing, are you writing with a specific audience in mind? And then also when the book is out there, do you envision a specific audience? Or we're talking about like the relationship between the specific and the universal. How does that play out for you all when you have a book finally out in the world?
Min, why don't you answer that first?
Oh.
Because it's a hard question.
Yeah, no, I think for me, it is a hard question. So one thing I found out, like when I wrote Drawn Together, a picture book about a boy and his grandfather, it's very specifically about the language gap between generations, right? And for me, it was like this relationship that always felt very personal, like this personal monkey on my back. But then you put the book out in the world and you realize that a lot of people had that same experience. And sometimes it was the same experience based on language, but then I would get people from all different cultures saying, I spoke the same language as my grandparents, but I couldn't connect with them because of just like for this reason or that reason. And it made me realize that doing the deep dive into something very culturally specific made it possible to reach something universal, because the more culturally specific or the more specific you can get, the more something will ring true, even if the details are different, right? So that kind of, it's not a dichotomy between specific and universal. It's actually like you get to the universal by being specific, if that makes sense.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that does. I mean, like, that's what I felt like reading like more to the story, or I mean, and of course, Drawn Together, I absolutely felt that too. Like, I don't have a Pakistani American family, but I felt like they were my family. You know, I felt like I knew those girls, like they were real people to me. I totally know what you're saying. For me, when I'm writing, I think a lot. My background as a mixed race American comes into play a lot, because I've always just grown up having Thai on one side and, you know, my Caucasian side on the other, like not a devil and an angel, but you know, like different voices on your shoulder. So I'm always thinking like, okay, what are Thai people going to think about this book? What are white kids going to think about this book? It's like more, I think, like an anxiety as I'm writing. Like, are people going to understand this? Is it going to be too foreign for them? Those are things that I'm thinking about always, and I have to like push those push those voices out when I'm writing and just write it for me, write the right story. And then it's always surprising to meet readers who come in and connect with the story who are nothing like I had imagined when I was writing it. Like I wasn't writing it for them, but as you said, they were able to connect with it. And that's like probably the most exciting thing.
Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of evolved. Like when I wrote Amina's voice, since it was my first middle grade, I was much more conscious of who my reader was and trying to speak to people both from inside and outside the culture and making sure that people saw things I wanted them to see, like a modern Pakistani American Muslim family, that they got a glimpse of a mosque and what goes on at an Islamic center. Because that was something I was like, okay, I know people wonder what really happens, at those places. But at the same time, I thought, okay, well, I want my reader who's similar to me to feel seen and to, have something that's special to them included as well. But it was definitely, both of those things were on my mind. And I feel like as I've progressed, like I feel much more free, maybe because that book was accepted. And, at the time there, it was my first and I didn't know how people might receive it. And since it was received so well, I just now feel much more, I don't know if you feel this way too, but I feel much more at license to sort of just be free to tell what I want to tell and not have those thoughts as much like weighing me down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can you guys,
yeah,
do you
totally.
guys do? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think I felt like that with my first books, with the Prophecy series. But now what I write, like, for example, when I wrote Spirit Hunters, I was just writing for the kids who love to be scared. That's all I was thinking about. And the scarier, the better, right? And then for Dragon Egg Princess, I was just writing for the kids who wanted to believe in magic and wanted to believe in dragons. So that's how I wrote. And it's just, that is definitely an evolution in how I write. Because when I first wrote Prophecy, I was very conscious of writing for the Koreans that were going to read, and also for the non-Koreans. And that thought process kind of like warred with me the entire time. So it's much easier now.
Yeah, and I think that's also a product of being like the first, like Amina's voice. You launched an imprint, right, Hannah? And when you were first writing your YA series, Ellen, you're a trailblazer. And A Wish in the Dark is one of the first Thai middle grade fantasies. So it's like when you don't have that. When you're one of the only voices, you feel like there's all this burden that you have to do it all. And so, yeah, having many more books, having more diverse voices in there, and so many more titles, I think it's freeing for us as creatives.
I was on a panel with Greg Pak, who does a lot of comics, and he's a great guy. And he used the term rep sweats, which I felt so deeply. Just like putting something out there, just be like, is it actually like accurate? Is it authentic? Is it? And I feel like for me, that within group pressure was a lot stronger because I was like terrified of getting something wrong. And the thing I came to terms with is I had in my head this like authentic, pure Vietnamese experience. And I was like, am I not that? And like, I'm comparing myself to this imaginary purity. And something I've come to terms with is like, there's such a spectrum of Asian American experience that there is no one thing to compare it to. And if they can be authentic, if your story can be a version of authentic and one that is true, at least to your experience, then that's something I can live with. But it is a lot of pressure, a lot of kind of like when we're kind of trying to put new stories out there. Hopefully, like I said, as we go along, hopefully that pressure kind of subsides. If we can all just kind of write what we want to write, like Hannah.
Well, not fully yet, but I feel more at ease. But yeah,
definitely sweats, literally sweats.
Yeah. Right.
So it's also because we know that in Asian culture, people are not afraid to tell you if they think you got it wrong. Like they are not shy. They'll be like, "That's not right."
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Even transliteration, like I spelled some words that people thought I should have spelled differently, and it to that level of detail, right? So
I definitely am going to have the rep sweats because of my current book that I'm revising right now, which is basically my middle grade Korean War. Oh my gosh, this book has kept me up at night because not only do I want to get it authentic because it's based on my mother's story and her experiences during the Korean War, but also because, we never talk about the Korean War. I mean, it literally is called the Forgotten War. So here I am writing a book about it. It's definitely going to be, one of very few out there. So I definitely have the rep sweats.
How many raise your hand if you've woken up in the middle of the night because of rep sweats?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but
Hannah's too cool for us.
Hannah sleeps soundly.
I just don't sleep. That's the problem. Like
that's how you get around it.
I stay up all night, and then when I sleep, I'm just gone.
Well, I feel like we could just keep going forever, but for the sake of our audience, we should probably start to wrap it up with and we thought we would wrap it up with some lightning round of questions. So these authors are so well prepared. They sent ahead of time a list of potential lightning round questions, and I thought that was just not fair because you have to catch them on the spot. So I came up with my own to create an authentic live experience for viewers out there. So are you ready?
All right, how do we do it?
Wait, what order are we going in?
I have not thought that far ahead. Okay.
Go.
Okay.
Go, Hannah.
We're gonna go Hannah, Ellen, Christina. Did that work?
And then you.
Okay, and then me.
You don't get out of it.
Okay, but these are gonna be rapid fire, so you can you can also just blurt out the answers if you want. Okay. First question is rice or noodles?
Rice.
Oh, rice.
Rice. Okay. It's a trick question because the right answer is rice noodles. Okay. So, if you could, this is a pretty standard one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Can I eat and not gain weight?
Flight, not gain weight.
Invisibility.
Okay.
Ooh.
Nice. My follow-up question.
What was yours?
Oh, mine would be to be able to multiply myself.
Oh.
Yes.
No, man. No, we can only handle one of you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that is: you wake up with that superpower. Are you a superhero or a supervillain?
I'd have to go hero. I think hero.
I'm definitely the villain.
Ellen's definitely a villain.
Yeah, totally.
I'm a hero.
Min, you're a villain.
I'll say villain just so I don't have to be on Ellen's bad side. Well, I will be Ellen's villain sidekick.
Ooh.
Yeah, a henchman.
Okay. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I am way behind the curve and just started watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Ellen has not killed me yet. But for those have Christina and Hannah, have you watched this?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
The cartoon?
What?
The animated series?
So it's not just me. Yeah.
I have not.
You guys have. I'm out of here.
Okay, so this question might not make sense to everyone, but my question for you is water, earth, fire, or air?
Ooh, I know the answer.
What are you? What resonates with you, Hannah? Water, earth, fire, or air?
Earth.
Earth.
Are you?
I'm an earthbender, absolutely. So I know this answer.
I feel like I want to be an airbender, but I feel like more water, probably.
I was also water.
I have no idea what this means. So,
Yeah.
Is that the right answer? Did I pick right?
That was a terrible answer, Hannah.
Did I get an A? Come on.
Okay, this next one is a little bit easier. No, maybe not easier, but you'll at least know what it is. Young Keanu or present day Keanu?
Ooh, both.
Present day.
Both.
You got to choose.
No, present day. Yes, he gets better and better.
I know, but do you remember Point Break Keanu?
Yes.
Oh, do I?
Min didn't answer this one.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I think I would go present day. Present day Keanu. Give me something to shoot for.
So, by the way, my youngest kid tells everybody John Wick is his father. So just
Cool.
So clearly, Keanu's my boyfriend. So just letting you know.
Wait, it was always be my maybe your life story?
No,
I did not know that.
no comment. No comment.
Okay, next one. If you could relive 1 year of school, which grade would you pick?
5th.
5th?
Pass.
None of them. None of them. Oh, senior year of high school.
Oh.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Skipping class, you're not yeah.
Oh, so it's not like a do-over? It's because we loved it so much, or because we
Yeah.
want to just get it right?
Oh, that's interesting. I just relive it.
Oh,
Oh. Yeah.
But
yeah. Because if it's like a complete do-over and I can control what it would be like, then I would just do all of middle school, but
Okay, so-
and just do it over. But
So
you know.
Hannah has a
I would
time.
actually skip middle school completely.
Or skip it. Yeah, just delete it.
So why are you writing middle grade if you're gonna skip it?
Because I'm trying to imagine a better
We-
version.
We write for the middle school kids, right, who are
Uh-huh.
suffering. That's what we're writing for them because we feel their pain. We know how hard middle school was.
That's right. Oh.
These lightning round questions finally got to some true heart of the matter issues. So you're welcome, viewers. Okay. Last question. So you know how there are lots of like celebrity read alouds out there right now. If you could have one celebrity do a read aloud of one of your books, who would it be?
Michelle Obama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch her and Barack do?
I did.
That was so great. Oh, yeah.
That's how I got. That's how I came up with the question.
Yeah, that was lovely. Oh,
That's such a thoughtful answer. I was gonna say like some young YouTuber that all the kids follow that I don't even know.
You know
But,
young
like,
YouTubers?
no, I know like whoever has like the 8 million followers or whatever.
I'm pretty sure Michelle Obama has many
Yeah.
followers.
Yeah. That was a good one. How about old Keanu?
Ooh,
that would be a good one.
I like that.
Yeah.
We're all just kind of like daydreaming something.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't know. He was gonna bring a lot of like acting.
More to the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are my lightning round questions.
Those are awesome.
So I'm out of material. You chose the wrong moderator for more than 45 minutes, or the perfect moderator to be able to wrap it up in just the right amount of time.
Perfect.
The perfect villain moderator. Absolutely.
So thank you all for joining us today, and happy Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Go out and do not go out. Stay inside and do good wherever you are.
And read a book.
Yes.
Our books, preferably.
Yes.
So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
bye, double hand.
Bye.